Nous sommes ici en France cet week-end pour jouer au Petit Soldat près de la ville historique de Avignon. Or, put another way, I've got a free weekend. I've jumped on a plane to go to a kind of random place in France just because there's a competition on this weekend and there wasn't one in the UK. And here I am in this phenomenal, historic, small old town up on a hilltop overlooking the south of France's, or one of the south of France's historic centres of Avignon. We're down a tiny side street called La Rue de la Camp de Bataille, which is obviously the road of the battlefield, which is a very good place to be, and we're in a competition which is being held in an old olive oil pressing plant, and that's the wrong word, sort of a historic dungeon type place in which olive oil would have been pressed in times gone by, and absolutely the place is stunning. I bought an Assyrian army to use. It was one that was in the box and it was quite small, pretty much the same one that I used in Greece earlier this year. And we're just about to dive in and start drinking coffee and eating croissants in the preamble. Catch you soon.
This means war.
Right, it's about 10 to 9, so we're probably thinking about starting in a Southern European way officially. Sorry, 10 to 10, and we're thinking about starting in a Southern European way at 10 officially, but whether that's actually true, I'm not sure. Looking around the room, I can see a few of the French people have already started tucking into wine. But it is civilised wine. I guess it's white wine because you'd always start like that. That's a very good wine to be drinking before 10 o'clock. You wouldn't really tuck into the red until maybe 10:30 or something, I'm guessing. So it's looking like it's going to be a very sociable event. We've got various people here that I've played before or seen before at other competitions, and also Gregory over from Greece, Hubert, who used to play in London for a while. So there are at least enough people who speak sensible English that my very, very poor schoolboy French won't be too much of a problem. I now need to decide whether I actually start the wine before 10 or possibly wait till about 11 and go straight in with the red. So I'll dial in another report once the first game started.
This means war. This means war.
Well, the civilised day continues, really. First game, playing a Galatian army, set up sort of the same way as the one that I used in Bournemouth earlier this year. One big command of Galatian warriors, the Paeonian ally, and a mostly cavalry command. The main difference really being, to my list, that all of the warriors were in one command, which probably didn't work actually, as well as the list I had. So they set up with cavalry, Paeonians on the wing, then cavalry, then a big block of infantry. My much more mobile Assyrian army largely refused the infantry with a couple of cavalry, and then the chariots and the mixed sort of shooty medium foot one concentrated on the other end of the line. So they sort of steamed into the cavalry, and the chariots just pushed into a big gap in between the enemy's infantry and cavalry commands, and ended up really being able to go past and trap and catch quite a lot of the army. My supported infantry managed to take on the very end of the Galatian line and chewed them up as well. So it ended up as a win for me. I broke the enemy army by breaking through the middle, chewing off the end of the heavy infantry line and battering the Paionians really. And then as I got through the middle, some light infantry finally ran for a touchdown and stole the enemy baggage to break the 25-point army. So after that, I'm now into my second left blonde. We've had a lovely buffet. It's a very relaxed thing as we stand here amongst the olive trees in a lovely part of France. Apparently last year it was even a sunny weekend. This is a little bit grey, but it's still much more pleasant than sitting at home, I'm sure. And plates of meat, plates of all sorts of odd sorts of vegetables. I think some people have already broken out the rum and the wine. Maybe we'll be into red wine for the afternoon game. Second of 5, in which looks like I'm playing Hubert, former Central London clubmate, and now back again as a resident of France. So I'm kind of sat in about 7th or 8th in the tournament of about best end of 35, 36 people, which is not a bad place to be at this stage. So I will check in again after the final game, or after the second game in fact.
This means war. This means war.
Ooh, but there's flowers behind.
Oh, that's very artistic, very artistic. So what is this then?
This grass is called Genepi.
Genepi. And this is like, is it a spirit or is it a wine or
It's
a fortified wine, a strong wine?
45.
Very fortified. Okay.
It's about something salt.
45 degrees.
45.
That's one I wanted to ask.
That's pretty.
It's 45.
40.
Look at that, swirling it round.
It's like a rum, you know.
Ah, it's like
a gin.
It's like a gin or a rum.
It's like a gin.
Yeah, but that's a wine glass size portion.
The alcoholic is above all in the flavors. You know. Still, this is need a bigger glass.
Okay.
To swap the flavors, because now you can only feel the alcohol.
Only the alcohol.
Okay. In the nose.
Okay, so is this a digestive?
Strawberry ice.
Strawberry ice.
With
Wow.
strawberry ice.
Wow. That's the thing.
No alcohol in there.
There's not enough alcohol, right? Oof. He's put that down.
Yeah, the sugar it's
It's too sugary, is it? Okay.
because it's the alcohol.
Yeah? Come on, I should try some. I'll try a much smaller thing than you did. There
It's
we
like
go.
a digestive, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
too
it's-
sugary.
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, that's kind of brutal. Yeah.
You tell me.
All right. Genepi. Ah, right. So it's got some sort of herb in it then.
So this
Yeah,
is wine
yeah.
from Genepi.
It's you took two pieces of this grass and you let with alcohol and sugar
Hmm.
and lemons.
Yep.
And you can drink after.
So it. What's it?
So this is
Rosemary. It's almost got rosemary in it.
Genepi.
Genepi.
Okay.
They had grapes. Also in Genepi. This is
only
grapes in Genepi.
Grapes and Genepi.
There's only alcohol, fruit alcohol,
Fruit alcohol. Yeah.
well, sugar and Genepi.
Yeah, so it's like a
Juniper.
limoncello.
Juniper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying, right?
Yeah, it's like a limoncello.
Like
the,
a
same,
limoncello?
the same procedure.
So it's
Sugar,
exactly-
lemons, alcohol.
So this is a juniper limoncello. Wow.
Yeah.
Genepicello.
Genepicello. Right. That looks like a thing.
Juniper.
It's
Juniper limoncello.
you find that in
Genevieve.
French Alps.
In the French Alps, okay. And you've made this yourself?
Genevieve.
No,
No.
I
Genevieve.
bought it.
You bought it, but it's in a small bottle.
Genevieve.
Genevieve.
With a P.
P.
Genepi.
Juniper, Genepi.
Genevieve.
It's juniper berries. So junipers are in gin, aren't they? I think. But this smells really.
Στο το γράψαμε αυτό τώρα. How? Not.
No, maybe not.
Gen is Geneva in French.
Genevieve. Okay. Well, it's going to set us all up good for the afternoon game, isn't it?
But you have to go to 2,050 or 3,000 meters.
3,000 meters to find it, so it's not juniper.
So this
It must
is
be something else.
traditional from the Alps.
Alps.
Right. I imagine if you're living in the snow, this would be really quite good for you. Traditional West
From?
Baltic.
Ne more.
From the Alps. From the Alps.
From
the
the
French
Alps.
Alps.
Give
from the
me
French
a
Alps.
village. Give me a village. From.
Oh, for my family, it's Le Chazelet.
Le Chazelet.
L-E.
Hrabstvo.
No, excuse me.
Hrabstvo. Skufano.
No, we got
I'm gonna make it deaf.
Yeah.
Whoever reads this one.
What? No, that can't be right. That can't be someone spelled with Z's in it. That's wrong. Le Chazelet. Le Chazelet. Right. Well, it's a good start if I'm going to be playing Hubert this afternoon to have some of this. That should help me a lot.
This means war. This means war.
Voilà. D'accord. Here we go. First field. 5. So it should be here.
Demande ce que je joue. Romain, moyen remplir.
Plantation.
Middle Imperial Roman.
5.
Imperial Roman. Middle Imperial Roman.
Field. 2. 1.
This means war. This means war.
Oh, God. Well, stood here, looking at the pool, crows overhead, coming back from, I guess, the monastery or something like that, in this historic town, and it's about 4:15. Second game just done for me, still underway for a few others. A pretty intense struggle against the Baron Hubert. Certainly one of the better or the best French players, and former Central Londoner as well, picked up many trophies in the UK. He had a Carthaginian army, not the earlier one with the chariots, the proper Hannibal in Italy one, with what was quite an unusual steady heavy infantry centre. 3 elite armoured spearmen mixed up with some regularised, well-trained Gallic heavy foot as well, to give sort of a 6 or 7 wide, very punchy, very solid centre. One wing with the usual mediocre elephant and a load of, again, regularised, well-trained, non-impetuous Gauls, and the other wing with a what would in most games, certainly in the historical period, be a reasonable cavalry force of mostly elite heavy and medium cavalry on the opposite side. Now, that, unfortunately for it, came up against my fast-moving medium foot and cavalry command, which has got a couple of mixed bowmen in it. It's got a couple of elite heavy cavalry shooters. It's got a light horse bow, and that was actually able to drive them back pretty well. At the end of the game, his general and the last surviving cavalryman from that command were literally on their base edge defending their own baggage as they got walloped by chariots and heavy cavalry and a combination of foot. Pushing that left flank forwards allowed the 4 chariots, the central command and the chariots in the flank command, to get past the end of the spears. So that really halted the spears' advance as they had to start turning around to deal with the threat of the Assyrian heavy chariots. Sort of halted their push down the middle. And then on the opposite flank, my heavy infantry, javelin men, a real mixed bag command, kind of struggled against the manoeuvrability of an all medium foot impact command, but again, a mediocre elephant can only survive for so long, and we probably on that flank sort of slowed them down, probably traded off units fairly evenly to win by the narrowest of margins. Actually, my army was 21 units down out of 22 when Hubert's went considerably over its 24-25 break point. But again, that last turn, Hubert had captured my baggage, and I lost 2 or 3 combats as well. So before that, it was looking very much like a a biggish win, and it's ended up as a fairly small win. So that puts me on one decent sized win and one score win going into round 3, which is definitely an ideal time for another beer.
This means war. This means war.
Third game done. Now dark. It's absolutely chucking it down on Saturday evening, and the Assyrians have won a biblical matchup against an Ugaritic army, which from World of DBM days used to be an absolute monster. In AGLG it's not, it doesn't appear to be quite as good. It was kind of a bit of a mirror image in that it had 4 elite impact chariots, but theirs were impetuous. But then the rest of the army had a large number of light chariots, which are medium cavalry bow, but are a little bit, well, not quite as good at going into rough terrain, which they shouldn't be doing anyway. The chariot off worked in my favour. I managed to get a couple of the enemy chariots sort of chewing into my heavier foot, and that gave me a little bit of an overlap with the other ones. And then really the rest of my army, the elite heavy cavalry bowmen, the mixed shooters, even the medium foot, were really no match for a line that was mostly of medium cavalry. So I ended up being able to push past the ongoing heavy chariotry face off, and then managed to roll up the heavy chariots that were still there. So a relatively straightforward win on matchup and lined up and aggression, and then that sets us up for a bit of an evening meal. We're going to sneak out into the town through the rain and have some Provençal French food with some of the guys and a couple of beers, and then back for the next game day after.
This means war. This means war.
Well, that's Sunday morning's game over and done in about an hour and 3/4, not in a good way. One of those games where I'm delighted to have managed to come second out too, because it looked much worse than that. I think I managed to ding about 9 or 10 of the opposition's troops. It was a Kushan army with a big block of cataphracts, 5 of them, and a couple of horse on one wing. The elephant and Indian command steaming through the middle, and then a sort of delaying mounted command with 4 bow medium cavalry and a couple of light horse on the other flank. My aim was to try and push that, and with the medium foot command and a couple of chariots and a good heavy cavalry, and try and shoot it with the mixed medium shooters, cause it some damage and stop it running away, whilst engaging the elephants with my elite swordsmen and the javelinmen and some other bits and pieces from the other foot command, whilst I was trying to hold away from the cataphracts, not really engage them, just feed them a couple of spearmen to slow them down and hit them with a couple of the good chariots, and basically none of that worked at all. The cataphracts ran over everything they hit pretty much immediately. The spearmen barely lasted a turn or 2 turns. My chariots got bogged down against cataphracts, which are surprisingly good against heavy chariots, even elite, and the elephants just went straight through and straight over literally everything I put in front of them. My elite guardsmen, swordsmen, just didn't stand up. Some great low lights, I think, of the game. Elite swordsmen losing to mediocre fairly comprehensively and in short order. A javelinman trying to evade from a charge, getting caught in the rear, blowing up 2 things behind him, and then to wrap it off, a mixed medium swordsman unit charging some light horse who he'd been shooting at unsuccessfully most of the game, and then getting beaten in 2 consecutive rounds by them as well. The army collapsed. I just didn't really get to grips with anything. One of those where I do always, in fact I don't even know why I do it really, I sort of regret taking the elites as the medium two medium swordsmen. They're supposed to give me an edge in rough terrain and make that command a bit more viable, but I'm really struggling to think of any point in time at which their elite have actually helped them. They're just bog standard medium swordsmen with different coloured skirts, so not exactly a great result there. But that leaves me in 3-1, and I got close on 50% of the enemy army, so not a bad place from second table in the competition. Everybody else is still playing, so I'll be able to grab an early lunch, start the afternoon game, and then head back on the road to the airport.
This means war. This means war.
But sadly, that's ended up being the end of it, really. The last game was a complete catastrophe, pinned into a really tiny corner by some impassable terrain, dropped onto my base edge. The Assyrian army had barely 2.5 feet to deploy in, and against an opponent in the shape of Alexander with a big phalanx, a couple of elephants and an Indian command which swept forward with high aggression, pinned me into the corner before I could even redeploy, and actually a very unusual, if a little probably too textbook composition of enemy army. I tried to swing all my chariots out to one flank to take on the companions. There was a big block of companions, the maximum number. They lined up, drew in my chariots, and then promptly turned tail, marched behind their phalanx, and ran over the rest of my army, which really had no answer to them. Also, the Indian army came without any elephants, but that meant it maximised on bow shooting, and the bows were incredibly accurate. They shot down 2 units of my heavy infantry who tried to get into them, but they were, to be fair, distracted by the rapidly arriving companions as well. So I ended the weekend on 3 wins to start with, and then 2 crushing losses. That put me in the slightly weird position of being, I think, 10th or 11th out of the 30 odd players there. Every single person I played managed to finish above me, which is a little bit weird. So I ended up playing the people who came 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th and 9th. So probably on some of opponents' scores I would have done very, very well. But a cracking weekend, and one that I think next weekend, or next year in fact, I will definitely look to go to again, possibly even taking the Eurostar as it goes down to Avignon, allowed to have a couple of beers on the way, which might be quite civilised as well. So, and thank you to all the team and the guys there down in Avignon who organised it. Great hospitality, fantastic town, lovely place, and I hope you've enjoyed this new format of background music podcast, and with our new title track as well. And thanks once again to Howard for that. Enjoy the podcast, and you can read about these reports in full detail on Madaxeman.com. Thanks for listening.